The Office of the Auditor General Nancy Gathungu has flagged what is shaping up to be a possible wave of scandal perpetuated by government functionaries under retired President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration that could have seen 34 billion shillings under fuel subsidy program stolen or diverted through commission or omission by government officers. The special audit to Parliament covering the period between April 1st, 2021 to June 30, 2022 flagged irregular utilization of 22.68 billion shillings from the Petroleum Development Levy Fund over payments made to 11 oil marketing companies amounting to 554.72 million shillings and irregular advance sales prices stabilization compensation of 5.32 billion shillings. The PDLF Act of 1991 requires the fund's monies to be used in the development of facilities for the distribution or testing of oil products. The law, which came into force on July 15, 2020, further provides that the cash shall also be used for stabilizing the local petroleum pump prices in instances of spikes occasioned by high landed costs above a threshold determined by the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Also flagged are irregular demurrage charges, 3.2 billion shillings passed to the consumers through high pump prices and 2.2 billion shillings in irregular administrative costs. The audit found that of the 49.68 billion shillings disbursed by National Treasury from the PDLF between July 2020 and June 2020, 18.14 billion shillings was illegally transferred to the State Department for Infrastructure to fund various road projects in violation of the law. According to records, the Kenya National Highways Authority undertook projects worth 531.78 million shillings, Kenya Rural Roads Authority 17.16 billion shillings, and the Kenya Urban Roads Authority 373 million shillings. Another 75 million shillings was channeled to the Ministry of Roads and Transport, allegedly to fund internal operations. Gathungu notes that another 4.54 billion shillings was transferred out of the PDLF to the Ministry of Energy to finance various projects not related to petroleum. The special audit puts the then National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani on the spot over the 22.68 billion shillings from the PDLF. The amount was meant to stabilize fuel prices to cushion Kenyans against price hikes driven by fluctuation in global oil prices, but may have ended up in the pockets of a few individuals. Further, in what points to a well-coordinated scheme, the audit report notes that the 5.32 billion shillings in irregular advance sales price stabilization compensation was against the PFM Act, with the responsibility on the then Principal Secretary in charge of the Energy Ministry and EPRA Director General Daniel Kipto. The document shows that the money was paid during the months of April, May and June 2022 as stabilization for advance sales of local volumes. But there was no legal framework for advance payments and that there is no evidence of recovery of this advance. The report further notes that the OMCs were allowed to determine the compensation framework that was used and they could vary the conditions without legal standing or fuel pump prices. The stabilization was not anchored on any law, directive or circular, and the committee formed to develop the stabilization mechanism was never gazetted, formalized or legalized. During the audit, the Ministry of Petroleum told the auditors that the advance sales were compensated at the price differential between effective pump prices for the period and that of the preceding period for volumes sold between the 10th day of previous pricing cycle and the 10th day of the next pricing cycle. This was to cushion the marketers who had already sold the volumes since the increase in prices in the next cycle from the 15th to 14th of every month, since they would have no mechanism of recovering the difference. However, the document notes that review of the advance sales compensation revealed that the entire local volumes imported between April and June were already compensated in full, and any change in prices would not have justified additional compensation. The 2.21 billion shillings in irregular administrative costs for stabilization of pump prices was against Regulation 4 of the Energy Petroleum Pricing Regulations of 2010, putting the Petroleum and Mining PS and EPRA Director General at the time on the spot. The amount was paid as administration costs from the April to May to August 2021 and June 2021 to July 2022 pricing. During the meeting of April 15, 2021 between the Ministry of Petroleum, EPRA and the OMCs, it was resolved that cargo importers would charge administrative fee of 50 cents per litre to cater for disbursement, documentation and processing of stabilization funds received from the ministry. The amount was to be factored in the petroleum pump prices from July 2021. The Ministry of Petroleum and Mining received 79.8 billion shillings for the period April 2021 to June 30th, 2022. The OMCs were compensated to help in price stabilization for the 5,820,790.41 cubic meters of the imported petroleum. However, outrun reports containing verified volumes by independent surveyors indicated an unexplained variance of 23,147.06 cubic meters. The OMCs that were overpaid include Mount Rong Lin 1, Kencor, Asharami Synergy, E3 Energy, Mount Albertine, VTTI, Texas Energy and Gulf Energy. Others are Mount Albertine KOSF, Mount Avatani and Galana. Of the 3.2 billion shillings in irregular demurrage charges, 37.32 million shillings did not meet the criteria set out in the Transport and Storage Agreement for recovery through the pump as the vessels offloaded within the provided 3 days. The audit established from the minutes of the demurrage committee that the main causes of the charges included scheduling inefficiencies, ullage constraints at Kenya Pipeline Company, receiving facilities and change of vessel arrival dates by importers. Reporting for the Informer, Catherine Chalo.